The boardroom fell silent as the heavy doors swung open and two security guards stepped inside. Every executive around the polished conference table turned toward the quiet man sitting alone at the far end. He hadn't interrupted anyone. He hadn't argued. He hadn't even defended himself while whispers spread across the room. "Sir, we're going to have to ask you to leave," one of the guards said politely. A few people chuckled. One executive leaned back with a smug smile. "This meeting is for serious investors, not people who wandered into the wrong building." The quiet man simply nodded. He picked up his worn leather folder, stood, and thanked the guards for being respectful. Without raising his voice or showing the slightest hint of anger, he walked toward the exit. Just before reaching the door, he stopped. He turned around, removed a sealed envelope from his folder, and placed it gently on the conference table. "I believe this belongs to your CEO," he said calmly. The CEO frowned before breaking the seal. Within seconds, the color drained from his face. The room that had echoed with laughter moments earlier became so quiet that even the hum of the air conditioner sounded loud. The man they dismissed wasn't begging for a seat at the table. He was the one who owned the future they desperately needed. No one spoke. The CEO slowly looked up from the contract and stared at the man standing by the door. "Daniel Carter?" The quiet man gave a slight nod. Every executive exchanged confused glances. Some reached for their tablets, while others quickly searched his name on their phones. Then the whispers began. "It can't be. That's him? The founder of Carter Dynamics? The billionaire?" Only minutes earlier they had laughed at his plain blue jacket, inexpensive watch, and simple shoes. Now they realized those same clothes belonged to a man whose company had quietly transformed entire industries without ever chasing publicity. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever been underestimated because of your appearance, tell us your story. Daniel Carter wasn't famous because he wanted attention. He avoided interviews, skipped magazine covers, and rarely appeared at industry events. Most people had never seen his face. His company let its innovations speak for themselves while competitors spent millions promoting their CEOs. The corporation gathered in that boardroom had been struggling for nearly 2 years. Once considered an industry giant, it had fallen behind because it lacked access to a revolutionary energy optimization system that could reduce operating costs by almost 40%. Investors were losing confidence. Share prices continued falling. Employees feared massive layoffs. What nobody in that room knew was that Carter Dynamics owned the exclusive global patent for that technology. More importantly, Daniel had personally requested today's meeting. Not because he needed them, because he wanted to give them one opportunity. Earlier that morning, Daniel had entered the building through the main entrance. The receptionist barely looked at him before assuming he was a courier. "Deliveries go downstairs." "I have a meeting with the board," Daniel replied politely. She smiled awkwardly. "I think you have the wrong address." Rather than argue, Daniel quietly showed her his invitation. She glanced at it for less than 2 seconds before waving him toward the executive floor without offering an apology. When he entered the boardroom, conversations stopped. One executive whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Did maintenance send someone to fix the projector?" Another laughed. "I've seen interns dressed better than this." The comments continued. Some questioned whether security had failed to screen visitors. Others assumed he represented a tiny startup hoping for investment. Not one person introduced themselves. Not one person asked who he was. Daniel simply listened. Years earlier, before building his billion-dollar empire, he had experienced moments exactly like this. People often judged him before hearing him speak. Back then it hurt. Now it simply revealed character. The CEO eventually entered and immediately focused on the presentation scheduled for larger investment firms. Seeing Daniel sitting quietly, he frowned. "I'm sorry," he said. "This meeting is restricted." Daniel reached into his folder. "I believe we're running behind schedule." The CEO turned toward security. "Please escort him out." Daniel closed the folder. There was no frustration on his face, only calm acceptance. He knew something they didn't. The contract now sitting on the conference table explained everything. The CEO continued reading. Every page made the situation worse. Carter Dynamics wasn't merely offering a partnership. It was offering complete financial rescue. $5 billion in immediate investment. Exclusive access to technology unavailable anywhere else. International expansion support. Protection from hostile takeovers. The agreement would instantly restore investor confidence and likely double the company's market value within months. But there was one final paragraph. The offer remained valid only until noon that day. The digital clock on the wall read 11:57. 3 minutes. The CEO stood so quickly that his chair rolled backward. "Mr. Carter, please, wait." Daniel paused near the door. "We've made a terrible mistake." One board member hurried forward. "I'm incredibly sorry. We didn't recognize you." Daniel smiled gently. "I know." Another executive added, "Please return to the table. We can discuss everything." Daniel slowly walked back. Hope returned to every face in the room. The CEO extended his hand. "We value this partnership." Daniel looked at the outstretched hand but didn't shake it immediately. Instead, he asked a simple question. "When you believed I had no influence, how much did you value me then?" Nobody answered. He continued, "When you thought I was just another visitor, why wasn't I treated with basic respect?" The silence became unbearable. One executive lowered his eyes. Another quietly removed his glasses. The receptionist who had entered moments earlier to deliver coffee stood frozen near the doorway, realizing she too had judged him. Daniel finally spoke again. "I've spent my career visiting companies without announcing who I am." Confused expressions spread across the room. This isn't the first time. He explained that every major partnership his company had ever signed began exactly the same way. He arrived alone. He dressed simply. He allowed people to reveal themselves before introducing who he was. Some companies welcomed him warmly, despite believing he was an ordinary guest. Others ignored him. A few mocked him. His final decision was never based solely on profits. It was based on culture. "Technology can solve business problems," Daniel said quietly. "Character determines whether success lasts." The CEO's voice trembled. "We can change." Daniel nodded. "I believe people can." He picked up the contract from the table. Every executive watched anxiously. He slowly turned to the final page. Without breaking eye contact, he folded the document once. Then again. Finally, he tore it cleanly in half. The sound echoed through the silent boardroom. No one moved. No one breathed. Daniel placed the torn pages back inside the envelope. "I visited another company yesterday." Several executives looked at each other nervously. The receptionist greeted every visitor with the same smile. The interns were invited into meetings to learn. The CEO thanked the cleaning staff by name. They didn't know who I was either. He smiled. But they treated me like I mattered. Realization spread across every face. The partnership had already found another home. Not because another company offered more money, because another company offered more respect. The CEO slowly lowered his head. "We lost everything before the meeting even began." Daniel gave a respectful nod. "No, you lost it the moment you decided someone's appearance determined their worth." He thanked the security guards for remaining professional throughout the encounter. "You were simply doing your jobs with kindness. Never lose that." Both guards smiled with quiet pride. As Daniel walked toward the elevators, no one tried to stop him again. They understood that billions of dollars weren't leaving the building. Something far more valuable had already left. Trust. Weeks later, business headlines confirmed what had happened. Carter Dynamics announced a historic partnership with a smaller competitor that quickly became the industry's fastest-growing company. The corporation that had rejected Daniel continued losing investors. Several executives resigned before the year's end, while the CEO publicly introduced mandatory leadership training centered on humility, respect, and workplace culture. Ironically, the greatest lesson they learned that year didn't come from a billion-dollar contract. It came from the quiet man they never bothered to know. Some of the employees who witnessed that meeting would later say they completely changed how they treated strangers. They stopped assuming success had a certain appearance. They greeted every visitor with the same courtesy, knowing that anyone walking through the door could carry an opportunity capable of changing their future. Because the truth is, the quietest person in the room may be carrying the opportunity everyone else is searching for. Now we'd love to hear from you. Where are you watching from? And have you ever been underestimated because of your appearance, your job, or your background? Share your story in the comments. We read as many as we can. And tell us this, do you think Daniel Carter made the right decision by walking away, or should he have accepted the company's apology and signed the contract anyway? If this story reminded you never to judge someone by appearances, please like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share it with someone who needs this reminder today.